Hi everyone, David Aragona and Mike Beer here, taking a look at the Tuesday race of the day. It is the Grade 1 Bluegrass going as race 10 at Keeneland. And Mike, this is a race that, of course, was rescheduled from last Saturday. In all candor, Mike and I did film a replay last week to do the Saturday version of the Bluegrass. So might have been the greatest preview in the world. We won't know. You're not going to see it. We're going to do it again here because right afterwards, we got the news that Keeneland did move that Saturday card back 3 days to Tuesday in light of all the rain that was coming in the Lexington, Kentucky area. And Mike, we're recording this on Friday now. It seems like a lot of the rain has already come. There's more predicted. So we'll see what the course condition is by the time they run this Bluegrass on Tuesday. It feels like it might still be wet because so much precipitation is falling.
Yeah, all you can do is hope that it dries out enough by the time we get to Tuesday that we get a fast track for this race. It's a really good field, David. I'm going to miss Keeneland this weekend, but Monday and Tuesday just got a lot more exciting.
For sure. I don't think there have been too many Grade 1 races run on a Tuesday going back through history. I don't know if there's even been one, but we're going to have one occurring this upcoming week. Same field of 7 that we had that was drawn on Saturday, Mike. A wide open field at that. There are, of course, the 2 long shots in there, Render Judgment and Admiral Dennis. But among those 5 that are likely to take the bulk of wagering support, it's not like there's a real standout among them. And for all horses that are coming into this race with something to prove, I mean, Owen Almighty has already got the points to get into the Derby, but most of these horses have to prove that they can get the points or handle the distance. So it's a real proving ground for these 3-year-olds.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it feels like there's plenty of talent in here, to be sure, but these are far from made horses, and there are still some distance questions to answer. You also have East Avenue, who was really impressive early on, and now all of a sudden you have no idea what's going on with that horse. We'll see if he can bounce back. If nothing else, you sort of expect the 5 East Avenue to use his speed here and see what happens.
With this being the DRF race of the day, do note that you can get free past performances for this race. You can handicap along with Mike and I using Classic, Formulator, or Timeform US past performances. And speaking of Timeform US, let's take a look at the pace projector for this Bluegrass. And I think the pace is going to be critical to the chances of the number 5 East Avenue, Mike, who is shown with a slight early lead in a fast-paced situation. And I'm going to be interested to see how hard the number 1 River Thames and the number 4 Owen Almighty go after East Avenue on the front end, because I wonder if the connections are going to respect a horse that has just been pretty unreliable. But what we do know about East Avenue is he's most dangerous when he gets loose up front.
Yeah, I do wonder how this pace is going to play out too, because I can obviously Owen Almighty has plenty of speed if they want to use it, but he's just been so handy, David, that I just feel like he would be one who wouldn't be looking to be getting involved in a speed duel. You already also mentioned he already has the point, so it's not like they got to get super aggressive here. East Avenue, to me, has just got to be on ascent here. They got to break this gate running and see if he can clear this lead into the first turn.
Let's go through this field from the rail out, beginning with the number 1 River Thames, and we'll take a look at the replay of his most recent start when he just gets nailed on the wire of the Fountain of Youth. A heartbreaking loss because, Mike, it looks like he's got this race won coming into the stretch. He put away his main pace rival in Neo Equos, who he really hooked up with around the far turn, but maybe going after that rival so early left him vulnerable to Sovereignty at the very end of this race, and you can see Sovereignty just nips him at the wire. It was the 3rd 90-plus buyer in a row for River Thames. We'll see if he's a horse that continues to get better with added distance, but it's pretty easy to envision another good trip coming to this horse.
Yeah, I thought so too. Yeah, I really like all 3 of his races, actually. I liked the first 2 wins, obviously. You mentioned in that Fountain Youth last time, he had to work pretty hard to get by Neo Equos there around the final turn and into the upper stretch, but he finally did put that horse away. And listen, he ran fine there. I'm not going to hold that loss against him. I feel like in some ways he just got run down by a better horse in there, but it was still a good performance. No, David, do you worry about stretching out again with this horse? I'm not totally convinced he wants to go that much longer. But man, I'm not going to deny his talent. This horse is good.
The number 2 is Rendered Judgment. He's going to be one of the bigger prices in this race. He finished second to the runaway winner of the Virginia Derby, American Promise, last time, and was kind of life and death to hold on for second in that race as they were all just kind of gasping behind American Promise, who completely dominated that race on the front end. He's just never really run a speed figure that makes him one of the top players in a spot like this, Mike, and he's faced some of the better 3-year-olds, even going back to the Risen Star, and just doesn't quite seem in the same league.
Yeah, he just looks like he's overmatched here. We'll see how much he can improve. I envision him just sort of taking back here, sitting off the pace, hoping they go fast in front of him, and then, maybe just trying to pick up some pieces late.
There are a few tough calls in this race, and one of them is the number 3, Burnham Square, who garnered a lot of attention coming out of his victory in the Holy Bull. And we'll take a look at the replay of that race where he moved impressively between horses around the far turn, got himself to the outside, and just runs right over to Pan Street, who obviously flattered this performance when he came back to beat Sovereignty, the Fountain of Youth winner, in the Florida Derby last weekend. And Burnham Square in this victory looked like a horse that would want every bit of added ground that he could get. But he came back at the same mile in the 16th distance last time at the Fountain of Youth, Mike, and he was kind of disappointing as the 9-5 favorite. We mentioned how the pace quickened around the far turn. He couldn't match the quickening of the pace and dropped back a little bit, but he was at least staying on at the end. He galloped out strongly. So if you're holding out that hope that the added distance is going to work for him, at least you did get some signals of that last time.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you do feel like he's one of the horses in here that longer is not supposed to really adversely affect him. We'll just see if he can, rebound a little bit here, because he was really trending the right way into that Fountain of Youth. And for whatever reason, he was just a little disappointing there. He was on the outside around both turns, so it's not like he had, a perfect trip. But man, he couldn't keep up when they were coming to the stretch. I mean, Sovereignty just ran right by this horse as they came off the quarter pole. I don't know. I feel like this horse is okay. I think he's going to run better in here, but I'm still not sure that I think he's that good.
I'd love to see them find a way to be a little bit more aggressive, because this is a horse that has run up closer to the pace in the past and has still produced that finish, but I would just not like to see him dropping too far behind in the early stages. The number 4 is Owen Almighty, and Mike, earlier you mentioned this horse's versatility. Yes, he got to the lead last time in the Tampa Bay Derby, and we'll look at the stretch run of that race, and you'll see what an advantage it was that he was able to secure the lead and slow down the pace, because he's got a sprint finish left in him, and he just leaves the others in his dust. But he does have that versatility to sit just off the pace. We've seen him do that in shorter races, even 2 back in the Sam F. Davis, where he issued a challenge to John Hancock and was turned away by that foe, but ran just fine from a stalking position. So I'm not so worried about trip with this horse. I just feel like he still has to prove that he can continue to run these numbers as the distances get longer.
Yeah, the distance is a big worry for him too. I do think he's talented, though. He's, I think he's got enough ability to go with these horses if he can see out the 9 furlongs. He obviously had all the best of it in the Tampa Bay Derby last time, but he also finished that race off like a good horse. I mean, I like him, David. I think he's talented. I worry about how far he wants to go.
And we talk about there being some difficult calls from a handicapping perspective in this race. I think the toughest call of all was the number 5, East Avenue, a horse who showed a lot of talent during his 2-year-old season, garnered praise for his visually impressive victory on debut, showed he could run a fast speed figure when he won the Breeders' Futurity in his second start. And we'll take a look at the stretch run of that race from October of his 2-year-old season. And at this point in time, Mike, he looked like he might be one of the top players moving ahead to the Kentucky Derby this year. It just hasn't worked out. Obviously, you can make the excuse of having a poor start in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, but I don't know what the excuse was for the Risen Star last time, and didn't sound like trainer Brendan Walsh knew what the excuse was either. He just said the horse trained great, ran poorly. I don't love to hear that. Now they're putting blinkers on, hoping to get him to get to the lead, and maybe that's the key for him.
Yeah, he was just so bad last time. I mean, even if you wanted to excuse the Breeders' Cup because of the stumble at the start, and obviously you have a right to do that. I was still disappointed in his Breeders' Cup, David, because after the stumble, he just didn't do anything in that race. It's like I would have liked to have seen him at least pick his feet up, and he didn't do that. He was awful last time. I guess we'll see if he can bounce back. I know he had an easy trip and maybe the track in his favor when he won the Grade 1 here as a 2-year-old. I still thought he looked good in those first 2 starts last year. So the talent's in there somewhere, but he's been so disappointing. It's hard to really trust him.
One additional point I'd make about the Breeders' Futurity is that as impressive as that race was, horses have not come back to match those numbers, or especially not improve out of that race, and some have even regressed, including those that finished closest to East Avenue at the end. The number 6 is Chancellor McPatrick, and he's the horse that was chasing home Owen Almighty in the Tampa Bay Derby that we already took a look at last time out, and that was the 3-year-old debut for this horse, Mike, and he had run very well during his 2-year-old season, won a couple of Grade 1s around 1 turn, another that was a disappointment in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and I think that prompted some questions about how far this horse really wants to go. I don't know if we got that answer last time in the Tampa Bay Derby, given how slow the pace was, but I did at least like to see the effect that the blinkers had on him, because they did make him more engaged early, and he was closer to the pace. That could serve him well here.
Yeah, agreed. I'm with you on that. I like that he was just seemed way handier in his 3-year-old debut last time, even though, he just sort of got out sprinted there a little bit through the stretch. But I thought he finished up actually very well in his own right in there, David. I think there's a forward move coming. Yeah, I'm still, I think it's still fair to question how far this horse wants to go. I don't think the Breeders' Cup Juvenile is necessarily the real test as far as that goes, the way that race was run. So I'll stay positive on him for now. I think he's moving forward. And, going into that Tampa Bay Derby last time, it just seemed like just a handful of works on the way back. I'm not sure that he was totally cranked up there.
Rounding out the field on the outside is the number 7 Admiral Dennis, who is going to be one of the big prices in this race, despite coming out for the powerful Brad Cox stable. A horse who's been coming along, Mike, but he's a bit of a plodder. He needs a pace ahead of him. He got it last time in the Rebel, but he just dropped so far back in the early stages of that race. He was picking up paces at the end, but still was only able to pass about half the field. Feels like a horse that probably would have been well served by the fast pace that we saw last week in the Arkansas Derby. I don't think he's going to get that kind of pace here, and he probably needs that much help.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, listen, if I was going to try to dress him up, I'd say he's had trouble in all 3 losses. And in the 2 races where he got good trips, he won both of them and looked okay doing it. But this still looks like a really tough spot for him.
Let's throw up our picks for this Grade 1 Bluegrass. And Mike, you're going to go with the number 6 Chancellor McPatrick, a horse who is now second off the layoff. We saw the positive effect of the blinkers. And if he gets the distance, you could argue he's the most talented horse in this race.
Yeah, exactly. And again, I just feel like he's going to move forward here in his second start as a 3-year-old. We'll see if he's able to do it. This is a really, really fun race, though. There are questions about everybody, but there's plenty of talent.
I've got him, and I've got River Thames in there. They're both going to be horses that I respect. I put the number 3 Burnham Square on top. I'm just hoping he's the best price of those, 4 or 5 horses that take the bulk of the money in here. And he's just the one that I trust going this distance. And I feel like he might still have that forward move in him based on the finish he displayed in the Fountain of Youth last time. So 3-1-6-4 for me and 6-3-4-1 for Mike in the Tuesday race of the day, the Grade 1 Bluegrass. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.